would you say to the average person? Like, let's try to break this down into like the 5 key elements for the average person listening to this podcast to take a great picture. What are the 5 important things? What are the 5? Like, just like, let's say it's your family and Thanksgiving. What do you look for? Is there something that, like, what would you, if it was you, like, is it like, obviously things, I guess, like lighting, or is it like is it the scenery? Is it this house? Is it centered? Tell me, what is it, the expressions? Give me your 5, if it was 5 things that you would say with a 5 check, like, let's check one, check. It gives you a better chance to take a great, memorable picture.
So the starting premise would be my hero. My hero is Steven Spielberg. And when Tom Hanks was asked what was it that made Spielberg the transcending director, cinematographer of our generation, probably the next generation, the previous one, Tom Hanks, who obviously collaborated with an awful lot, he said it's because he has a fluency in the language of what it takes to elicit emotion. That's absolutely bang on. So the first word is emotion. If a photograph doesn't have emotion within it, it's got to have a lot of other fucking good stuff going on. Emotion to me is the bedrock of engagement. And I try always to remember that. Is it going to elicit emotion with you? It's the very same way as I think your first experience of meeting the person you love. Did the first thing you see, was your attention grabbed and was it held? And a picture has to do that. Great pictures normally can never be taken again. If you look at, you're a tennis player. Rafa Nadal is one of the most expressive tennis players that we've known since the days of Connors and McEnroe or whatever. And I photographed Connors and McEnroe. But it's very difficult for me to conceive of a picture of Rafa Nadal that is so different from all the others that it can never be taken again, because he has those emotions, and they're visceral, they're powerful. But he's always going to be on a tennis court. He'll be in a tennis court in Paris later on today, and there'll be 80 people around that court photographing. You can get a very strong press photograph, but a photograph that stands the test of time, I think it's tough, where the action happens time and time again, like in sport. So that's the second one. If you go to a wedding reception, here's a bizarre metaphor coming up now, and you arrive at 3:00 in the afternoon to the wedding reception. You got through the church service and you're dying for a drink, and you go into this beautiful marquee and you're looking for someone serving drinks, and they're 45 meters away, the other side of the marquee. You go, this is going to be a shit wedding because I'm going to have to go 45 yards to get a drink. Whereas if the first thing you see when you walk into the marquee are rows of people lined up with espresso martinis, you're going to go, this is going to be a good one. It's exactly the same with a photograph. When you look into a photograph, you want to see something straight away. You want to see someone serving an espresso martini, metaphorically, straight away. You don't want a loose picture where there's a big distance between the camera and the first thing. Take the Wolf of Wall Street picture. You know how close I was to all of you.
Yeah.
So that there is there's depth to the composition. There's narratives and all sorts of layers. But the first layer of narrative, the person that was the master of that, Scorsese, funnily enough, if you look at the filming and the dealing room scenes in the actual movie, there was always stuff very close, as well as getting a sense of place from the background. So that would be the third thing. So emotion would be one. Never be taken again would be 2. Proximity would be 3. The key word in photography, if photography was a language, the key verb in that language is focus. Focus either deliberately includes or deliberately excludes. My photograph, the central character has to be pin sharp. There's no room for ambiguity in it. If it's 98% pin sharp, it's not good enough. It's like a souffle. If I was a chef trying to make a souffle, there'd be bloody disasters. I could never get my souffle up. never mind Norway, I couldn't get my souffle up. And it's the same with focus. It's just got to be bang on precise. So that's the fourth and the final one. If you've ever been to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, which if you haven't, if people listening to this haven't and they get a chance, it's the best art museum in the world. Here's a maritime nation, a tiny, small maritime nation that for 4 centuries controlled the art world. It's quite extraordinary that Holland, from about 1400 to about 1800, controlled the art world.
Why is that?
Well, they sent a lot of their painters down to Italy, so there was always sort of constant regeneration. I guess because of their maritime roots, they were visually exposed to more, but I don't think that's a good enough reason, because so many of the pictures they painted were domestic scenes that didn't require that international contextuality. But there's a room there just full of Rembrandts, and there's a Rembrandt the size of your window here. It's a very famous picture, The Night Watchman. There are people that will stand and cry and look at, including me, and they'll look at that picture for 45 minutes. Painting. I think the best pieces of art, whether it's a photograph or a Rembrandt or whatever, can be looked at for a long time. If I look at my pictures, and I'm my biggest critic of my pictures, I've been in the studio the last 2 days, and I looked at my work for the last 6 weeks, and there are pictures that I thought were good, and then I see them printed the size of table tennis tables, and if my engagement is less than 10 seconds, I've failed. You should be looking at it time, and that's why that picture of you works.
Yeah,
because people can look at it for a long time.
So engagement.
Yeah. So those would be my 5 things.
What about more mundane things like lighting?
You kind of take those as read. I mean, I think that there's certain things that you've just got to get right before you even get into the game. But understanding the language of light, understanding the importance of working against the light. I tend to work against the light. So I always say to young kids that come in for some advice or an intern, if you're ever taking a photograph and you can feel the sun on your neck, on the back of your neck, your camera's in the wrong position. You should never feel the sun on the back of your neck, i.e. you should never be photographing directly with the light. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but normally I tend to photograph at about 45 degrees either side of the source of light.
Got it.
It just makes it so much more interesting.
Really?
Sometimes, of course, in the big bad world of not being able to stage things, you can't control where your subject matter is in the light. But where you can control it, you shouldn't have the sun behind you. And that's a mistake a lot of people make.